My name is Elena. I am 42 years old, and for the last 16 years, my entire world has revolved around two people, my daughter, Maya, and my younger sister, Isabella. If you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you that nothing, absolutely nothing, could ever break the bond the three of us shared. We were a fortress, a team. But I learned the hard way that blood might be thicker than water, but money is a solvent that can dissolve even the strongest ties. When the envelope arrived, it looked like something out of a fairy tale. Cream-colored, heavy cardstock, the kind that feels like fabric between your fingers. My name was written in calligraphy so elegant it looked like art. I remember smiling as I broke the wax seal, thinking this was the beginning of Isabella's happy ending. I didn't know I was holding a declaration of war against my own child. Before I tell you how my own sister broke my daughter's heart and shattered our family, please take a moment to subscribe. If you have ever been pushed aside by someone who swore to love you forever, hit that like button. Let's remind each other that we are not alone. To understand why this hurts so much, you have to understand where we came from. Isabella and I didn't grow up with gold-embossed invitations. We grew up in a drafty 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago, raised by a single father who worked double shifts at a factory just to keep the lights on. I was 6 years older than Isabella. When our mom passed away, I wasn't just a big sister anymore. I became her mother, her protector, and her best friend. I remember one winter when Isabella was 7. She desperately wanted this specific doll for Christmas, a ballerina with a pink tutu. Dad couldn't afford it. The heating bill had just tripled. I was 13. I spent 3 months delivering newspapers before school, walking through snowdrifts that soaked my sneakers just to save up those $20. When Christmas morning came and I saw her face light up as she unwrapped that doll, that was better than any gift I could have received. She looked at me with those big, trusting eyes and whispered, "You make magic happen, Elena." That was our dynamic. I made the magic happen. I protected her. As we grew up, that bond only deepened. When I got pregnant with Maya at 26, my partner walked out before I even showed. I was terrified. But Isabella? She was 20, still in college, yet she was at my apartment every single day. She painted the nursery. She learned how to change diapers before I did. There is a specific memory that plays on a loop in my mind. Maya was about 4 years old. She had a high fever, scary high, and I was panicking, crying in the kitchen because I was exhausted and broke. Isabella came over at 2 a.m. She didn't say a word. She just took Maya into her arms, sat in the rocking chair, and sang to her for 3 hours straight until the fever broke. Maya fell asleep gripping Isabella's finger. "I've got her," Isabella told me that night. "I will always have her, Elena. She's not just your daughter. She's ours." Maya worshipped her Auntie Bella. They had their own secret language, their own inside jokes. Every Sunday they had a tradition, pancake and paint. They would make messy, misshapen pancakes and then spend hours painting with watercolors at the kitchen table. Isabella wasn't just an aunt. She was Maya's second parent. She was the cool confidant, the safe harbor. So when Isabella met Preston, we were thrilled for her, at first. Preston was different. He came from a world we only saw in movies, old money, the kind of wealth that doesn't need to shout because it whispers in every tailored suit and silk tie. He was charming, intelligent, and he swept Isabella off her feet. He took her to vineyards in France, to operas in Milan. But slowly, like a fog rolling in, things began to change. It started with the clothes. Isabella stopped wearing the quirky, colorful vintage dresses she loved. "Preston prefers neutrals," she told me once, smoothing down a beige cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my car payments. "He says bright colors are a bit loud." Then it was the laugh. Isabella had this loud, infectious cackle that could make a whole room smile. One evening at dinner, she laughed at a joke Maya made, and Preston placed a hand on her arm. just a light touch. "Bella, darling," he said softly, but with a coldness in his eyes. "Volume. We are in a restaurant." She went silent immediately. The light in her eyes dimmed just a fraction. The pancake and paint Sundays became less frequent. First it was, "Oh, Preston and I have a brunch with his investors." Then it was, "Preston thinks we should spend the weekend at the lake house networking." Maya, who was 14 by then, tried to hide her disappointment. She would shrug and say, "It's okay, Mom. She's busy being a princess now." But I saw her checking her phone, waiting for a text that didn't come. I tried to talk to Isabella about it. "You're drifting away," I told her one afternoon. "Maya misses you. I miss you." Isabella looked tired. "You don't understand, Elena. Preston's world, it's demanding. There are rules. There are expectations. I'm trying to build a future for us, for all of us." I wanted to believe her. I really did. I told myself that once the wedding planning was over, the old Isabella would come back. The engagement happened in Paris, of course, a diamond the size of an ice cube, and immediately the wedding talk began. It was going to be the event of the season, the venue, the Sterling estate, a historic mansion that didn't even publish its prices. Maya was ecstatic. "Do you think Auntie Bella will let me be a junior bridesmaid?" she asked me, eyes shining. "Or maybe I can help with the decorations. I've been saving ideas on Pinterest for months." "I'm sure she has something special planned for you," I assured her. "You're her favorite person in the world." God, I regret saying that. I regret giving my daughter hope. That brings us back to the invitation. Tuesday afternoon, the cream envelope, the wax seal. Maya was sitting at the kitchen table, struggling with her math homework. When she saw the mail in my hand, she dropped her pencil. "Is that it?" she gasped. "Is that the invite?" "It looks like it," I said, feeling a bubble of excitement in my chest. I handed it to her. "You do the honors." Maya carefully broke the seal. She pulled out the card, her eyes scanning the gold foil text. "The Sterling estate," she read aloud, breathless. "Saturday, December 14th, a winter wedding. Mom, that's going to be so beautiful." She kept reading, smiling, until suddenly she stopped, her brow furrowed. She flipped the card over. She checked the envelope again. "Mom." Her voice was small, trembling. "What is it?" "It says, Elena Russo, just your name." "Let me see." I took the card. I scanned the bottom, and there, in elegant, tiny italics, was the sentence that sucked the air out of the room. "Adults only ceremony and reception. We respectfully request no guests under the age of 21. I stared at the words. I read them twice, 3 times, thinking I must have misunderstood. Under 21? Maya was 16. She wasn't a toddler who would cry during the vows. She wasn't a child who would run around the dance floor. She was Isabella's niece, her pancake and paint partner. "Maybe it's a mistake," Maya said, her voice cracking. Tears were already welling up in her eyes. Maybe because I'm family, it doesn't count. Auntie Bella wouldn't not invite me, right?" I looked at my daughter, the girl who had drawn pictures for Isabella, who had saved her allowance to buy Isabella a wedding gift months ago, and I felt a surge of protective rage so hot it almost blinded me. "I'm going to call her," I said, grabbing my phone. "Right now. It has to be a mistake." I dialed Isabella's number. She answered on the second ring, sounding breathless and stressed. "Elena, did you get the invite? Isn't the paper divine? Preston chose it. It's imported from Italy." "Bella, stop," I cut her off. My hand was shaking. "The invite says adults only, under 21. "Oh." Isabella's voice changed instantly. It went from excited to guarded. "Yes, that." "What do you mean, yes, that?" I looked at Maya, who was watching me with desperate hope. I walked into the hallway so she wouldn't hear everything. "Bella, surely this doesn't apply to Maya. She's your niece. She's 16. There was a long pause on the other end. "Elena, listen. Preston and I discussed this at length. It's a very sophisticated affair. Black tie. Open bar. His business partners will be there. It's just not an environment for children." "Children?" I repeated, my voice rising. "She's not a child, she's Maya, the girl you rocked to sleep when she was sick, the girl who worships the ground you walk on. You're telling me she can't come to your wedding because it's sophisticated?" "It's not just about her," Isabella said, her voice sounding rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. "Preston's family is very strict about etiquette. If we make an exception for Maya, his cousin will want to bring her twins, and then it becomes a circus. We need to draw a hard line." "A hard line?" I laughed, but it was a bitter, ugly sound. "You're drawing a line through your family, Bella. Maya isn't a random cousin's twin. She is the closest thing to a daughter you have. She has been looking at dresses for months. She has a Pinterest board dedicated to your wedding." "Don't do this to me," Isabella snapped, and for a second I heard the stress cracking her composure. "Do you think this is easy? I'm under so much pressure, Elena. Preston wants everything perfect. His mother is breathing down my neck about the guest list. I need you to support me on this. Please, just for one night." "Support you?" I whispered. "You want me to leave my heartbroken 16-year-old daughter at home alone on the night her beloved aunt gets married, just so Preston's rich friends don't have to look at a teenager?" "She can stay with a sitter," Isabella suggested weakly, "or Dad passed away 4 years ago, Bella," I reminded her coldly. "Or did you forget that too in your new fancy life?" Silence. Then I heard a voice in the background, a deep, impatient male voice. "Preston." "Is she still arguing?" I heard him say. He didn't even whisper. "Tell her the guest list is final. We aren't running a daycare." I felt the blood drain from my face. "I heard that," I said. Isabella came back on the line, her voice tight. "Look, Elena, the invitation stands. You are welcome to come, and I really hope you do. You're my sister, but Maya cannot attend. That is the final decision." I stood there in the hallway looking at the peeling paint on my wall, thinking about the opulent Sterling estate and the man who called my daughter a daycare problem. "If that's your final decision," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of sorrow and fury, "then here is mine. If Maya isn't good enough for your sophisticated wedding, then neither am I." "Elena, don't be ridiculous," Isabella cried out. "You're the matron of honor." "Not anymore," I said. "I'm a mother first, and I won't celebrate a union that starts by rejecting the people who loved you when you had nothing." I hung up the phone. My heart was pounding like a sledgehammer against my ribs. I stood there for a full minute, trying to compose my face, trying to figure out how to walk back into that kitchen and break my daughter's heart. This was the moment the war began. But I didn't know yet just how dirty Preston was willing to fight. Walking back into that kitchen was the hardest walk of my life. It was only 10 steps from the hallway, but it felt like walking through quicksand. Maya was sitting exactly where I left her, clutching that thick, cream-colored envelope like it was a lifeline. She looked up at me, her big brown eyes wide with that terrifying mixture of hope and fear. She knew. Children always know when the news is bad. They read it in the slump of your shoulders, in the way you can't quite meet their gaze. "Mom," she whispered, "did you fix it?" I pulled out the chair next to her and sat down. I took her hands in mine. They were cold. "Honey," I started, my voice failing me. I cleared my throat. "I talked to Auntie Bella, and there's no easy way to say this. The wedding is strictly adults only, no exceptions." Maya didn't cry immediately. She just sat there, processing. "But even for me? I'm not a guest, Mom. I'm family. I'm her niece." "I know," I said, squeezing her hand so hard my knuckles turned white. "I told her that. I told her exactly that. But Preston and his family have very strict rules for this event. They want a certain atmosphere." Maya pulled her hands away. She looked down at the table. "It's because I'm not fancy enough, isn't it?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "No, Maya, look at me. No." "It is," she insisted, her voice trembling. "I heard her last time she was here. She told you that Preston's friends are elite. She looks at our apartment like it smells bad. She's ashamed of us." "She loves you," I lied. It tasted like ash in my mouth. "She's just under a lot of pressure." "She's ashamed of me," Maya repeated, a single tear finally escaping and tracking down her cheek. Then she stood up abruptly. "It's fine. Whatever. I didn't want to go to a stupid, boring wedding anyway." She turned and ran to her room. A second later, the door slammed. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the gold-embossed invitation. The silence in the apartment was deafening. I wanted to tear that expensive paper into confetti. Instead, I stood up and walked to Maya's room. I didn't knock, I just opened the door. Maya was sitting on her bed, staring at the closet door. Hanging there was the dress. We had bought it 2 months ago. It was a cornflower blue chiffon dress, floor-length with delicate lace sleeves. It wasn't designer. We found it at a department store sale, marked down 40%. But when Maya put it on, she looked like royalty. She had spent weeks walking around the house in her socks, practicing how to walk in heels so she wouldn't trip and embarrass Auntie Bella. Now she was looking at that dress like it was a corpse. "I spent all my babysitting money on shoes," she said quietly, not looking at me. $80. I can't return them because I scuffed the soles practicing." I sat on the bed beside her and pulled her into my arms. She finally broke. She sobbed into my shoulder, that deep, heaving cry of a child realizing that the world is cruel and unfair. I held her, stroking her hair, and with every sob that shook her body, my resolve hardened. I was done making excuses for Isabella. The next morning, the flying monkeys arrived. That's what therapists call them. The people an abuser sends to do their dirty work. First, it was my Aunt Carol. She called while I was making breakfast. "Elena, I heard you're not coming," she said, her voice dripping with judgment. "Don't you think you're being a little dramatic? It's Isabella's big day. You're going to ruin it over a scheduling conflict?" "It's not a scheduling conflict, Carol," I said, cracking an egg into the pan with more force than necessary. "It's an exclusion. She excluded my daughter, her niece." "Well, you know how these rich families are," Carol sighed. "They have standards. Just get a sitter. Don't be selfish. You'll regret missing your sister's wedding." "The only thing I'd regret," I said coldly, "is looking my daughter in the eye and telling her that a party is more important than her feelings. I'm not going." I hung up. Then my cousin messaged. Then an old family friend. They all said the same thing. Suck it up. Be the bigger person. It's just one night. They didn't understand. It wasn't about the night. It was about the message. You are not good enough. 2 days later, a courier arrived at our apartment. He was carrying a small, sleek black box with a silver ribbon. He made me sign for it. Inside was a note on Preston's personal stationery. "Elena, we understand that childcare costs can be a burden for someone in your financial position. Enclosed is something to cover a premium sitter for the weekend, plus a little extra for your trouble. We expect to see you at the rehearsal dinner. Preston." Under the note was a check. I stared at the number. $5,000, $5,000. To him, it was pocket change. To me, that was 3 months of rent. It was a new laptop for Maya. It was car repairs. For a split second, just a fraction of a second, I hesitated. I thought about how much easier my life would be with that money. And then I looked at Maya, who was doing homework on the couch. She looked up, saw the box, and asked, "What's that?" "Nothing," I said. I realized then what Preston was doing. He wasn't trying to help. He was buying my compliance. He was buying my silence. If I took that money, I was selling my daughter's dignity. I would be telling her that her exclusion had a price tag, and I had accepted it. I took the check, tore it into 4 pieces, put it back in the box, and taped it shut. I drove to the post office immediately and mailed it back to his office with a note of my own. My daughter is not for sale. and neither is my presence. Have a nice life." The weeks dragged on. The silence from Isabella was absolute. She didn't call to apologize. She didn't try to compromise. She had made her choice. She had chosen the Sterling estate, the imported paper, and the man who thought $5,000 could fix a broken family. Finally, the day arrived, December 14th. I woke up with a heavy stone in my stomach. I knew that right now, miles away, makeup artists were fussing over Isabella. Photographers were snapping pictures of the dress I was supposed to zip up. Maya came into the kitchen in her pajamas. She looked at the calendar on the wall where the date was still circled in red ink from months ago. "It's today," she said. "Yes," I said. I poured 2 mugs of hot chocolate, piling hers high with marshmallows. "It is. Do you think she misses us?" Maya asked. I looked at my brave, kind-hearted girl. "I think," I said carefully, "that someday she will. But today we are going to make our own magic." "I have a plan," I announced. "Go get dressed, comfortable clothes, warm layers." "Where are we going?" "We," I said, "are going to be tourists in our own city, and we are going to break every dietary rule in this house." We spent that Saturday doing everything we usually couldn't afford or didn't have time for. We went to the downtown ice skating rink, the expensive one with the giant tree. We rented skates and wobbled around the ice, holding hands and laughing until our sides hurt. Maya fell on her butt, and instead of being embarrassed, she threw her head back and laughed that loud, cackling laugh she shared with Isabella. For lunch, we went to the Cheesecake Factory. We didn't order salad. We ordered fried calamari, burgers the size of our heads, and 2 massive slices of cheesecake. "To us," I said, raising my water glass. "To us," Maya smiled. It was a genuine smile reaching her eyes. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed. Then it buzzed again and again. Social media notifications. Isabella Johnson just posted a photo. Isabella is live. I felt a magnetic pull to look, to see her. "Don't," Maya said. She was watching me. She reached across the table and put her hand over my phone. "Don't look, Mom, not today." She was 15, but in that moment, she was the wise one. "You're right," I said. I turned the phone off and shoved it deep into my purse. "You are absolutely right." We ended the day at the movies, watching a Marvel blockbuster with a bucket of popcorn so greasy it was practically translucent. We sat in the dark, shoulder to shoulder, absorbed in a world where good guys always win and bad guys always get what they deserve. When we got home, it was past midnight. The wedding reception would be winding down now. The guests would be stumbling out, drunk on expensive champagne. I tucked Maya into bed, just like I used to when she was little. "Mom?" she murmured, half asleep. "Yeah, baby. Today was really good. It was better than a wedding." I thought so, too. "I'm glad it was just us," she whispered. "We don't need them. We're the fortress." "That's right." I kissed her forehead. "The fortress." I went to my room and finally turned my phone back on. The screen flooded with images. There she was. Isabella. She looked breathtaking, undeniably. The dress was a masterpiece of lace and silk. Preston looked like a GQ model next to her. The venue was dripping in crystals and white roses. But I zoomed in. I zoomed in on Isabella's eyes in a candid shot taken during the toasts. Everyone around her was laughing. Preston was holding court, a glass of scotch in his hand, looking triumphant. But Isabella? She wasn't looking at him. She was looking off camera, staring into the middle distance. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Behind the professional makeup, she looked hollow, like a doll that had been posed. I remembered the check. I remembered the adults-only rule. I remembered the silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt a cold chill of fear. I had saved my daughter that day. I had protected Maya from feeling small and unwanted. But as I looked at that photo of my sister, surrounded by wealth and strangers, I realized something terrifying. I was safe. Maya was safe. But Isabella? Isabella was trapped, and the door had just locked behind her. I didn't hear from my sister for 6 months after that day. Not a text, not a call. The radio silence was deafening. I tried to reach out a few times, a text on her birthday, a comment on a photo, but the replies were short, impersonal. Thanks. Hope you're well. It was like talking to a stranger's assistant. But life has a funny way of forcing truths to the surface. You can hide bruises under makeup, and you can hide misery under money, but eventually the cracks start to show. The first crack appeared in July, and it didn't come from Isabella. It came from the gossip mill. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Susan, an old friend of our mother's who had actually been invited to the wedding. Preston needed fillers for the bride's side, apparently. "Elena," she gasped, cornering me by the produce. "I haven't seen you since before the wedding." "Oh, honey, you missed quite a show." "I heard it was beautiful," I said stiffly, reaching for a bag of apples. "Beautiful?" "Oh, yes, visually." Susan lowered her voice, leaning in. Her eyes glittered with the thrill of scandalous news. "But the atmosphere? You could cut the tension with a knife, and... Did you hear about what happened at the reception?" I paused. "No. What happened?" Susan looked around to make sure no one was listening. Preston's mother made a speech. She didn't even mention Isabella's family. Not once. And then Preston yelled at Isabella in front of the head table. My stomach dropped. He yelled at her? On their wedding day? He hissed at her, Susan corrected. She spilled a drop of red wine on the tablecloth, just a tiny drop. He grabbed her wrist. Elena, he grabbed it hard and whispered something that made her turn pale as a sheet. She spent the next hour in the bathroom. When she came out, she had redone her makeup, but her eyes were red. Susan shook her head. That man, there's something wrong with him. You and Maya were lucky to miss it. I drove home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers ached. He grabbed her wrist. I looked at the passenger seat where Maya usually sat. I thought about the fortress we had built, and I realized that while we were rebuilding our lives, Isabella was living in a beautiful, gold-plated war zone. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just leave her there. But how do you save someone who doesn't want to be saved? Someone who thinks they have won the lottery when really they've sold their soul? Little did I know the opportunity would come sooner than I expected, and it would come in the form of a panicked phone call at 3:00 a.m. They say no news is good news, but when it comes to family, silence is usually a scream you just can't hear yet. For 6 months, Isabella became a digital ghost. If you looked at her social media, she was living a fairy tale. There were photos of her and Preston on a yacht in the Amalfi Coast, captions filled with heart emojis and hashtags like "Worski soulmates" and "blessed." There were videos of her touring their new mansion, a sprawling estate with marble floors and chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls. To the outside world, she had won. She had the handsome husband, the money, the status.
But I wasn't the outside world. I was her sister. I knew the shape of her smile and the smiles I saw in those photos. They didn't reach her eyes. They were tight, practiced. It was the smile of a woman who is trying desperately to convince herself that she is happy. I stopped liking the posts. I stopped commenting. It felt like applauding a performance I knew was fake. Maya took it harder. She blocked Isabella on everything. "I don't want to see it," she told me one night, closing her textbook with a snap. It hurts too much to see her playing perfect family with strangers when she threw us away. I focused on us. The fortress. I picked up extra shifts at the office. Maya made the honor roll. We were healing, slowly, like skin knitting together over a wound. But the universe wasn't done with us yet. In late September, the first real crack appeared. It was my birthday. I didn't expect a gift. Preston had made it clear where we stood on the financial hierarchy. But I expected a text, a call. Isabella had never missed my birthday in 38 years. Even when we were broke, she would make me a card or sing to me over the phone. The day passed. Morning turned to afternoon. Afternoon faded into evening. Maya baked me a cake, a lopsided chocolate thing with way too much frosting, and it was the best cake I'd ever tasted. We laughed, we watched a movie, but every time my phone buzzed, my eyes darted to the screen. Nothing. At 11:45 p.m., just 15 minutes before my birthday ended, my phone rang. It wasn't Isabella, it was a restricted number. Hello? I answered, muted the TV. Elena? The voice was whisper quiet. It sounded like Isabella, but wrong. Her speech was slurred, slow, like she was underwater. Bella, is that you? Happy? Well, it's my birthday. I know, she whispered. There was a strange sound in the background, running water, like she was in a bathroom with the tap on full blast. I know, Elle, I wanted to say it. Happy birthday. Are you okay? I sat up straight, my instincts screaming. Have you been drinking? Just a little wine, she giggled, but it was a dark, brittle sound. Preston opened a vintage bottle, 1982. Can you believe it? Older than us? Bella, why are you whispering? He doesn't like it when I'm on the phone late, she said, the giggle vanishing instantly. He says it disrupts my sleep cycle. He worries about my health, Elle. He's so particular. Isabella, where are you? I have to go, she said suddenly. Her voice spiked with panic. I think I heard the door. I just wanted to say, I miss the pancakes. I miss the paint. Bella, wait. Click. She was gone. I sat there in the dark, my heart hammering against my ribs. I miss the pancakes. I miss the paint. I miss the, She hadn't mentioned our pancake and paint tradition in over a year. It was a code. It was a lifeline thrown across a vast ocean of silence. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the slur in her voice, the fear when she mentioned the door. 2 weeks later, I decided I couldn't just watch from the sidelines anymore. I heard through my Aunt Carol, who was now surprisingly quiet about how wonderful Preston was, that Isabella was in town for a charity gala. I knew she wouldn't agree to meet me if I asked. Preston would forbid it. So I did something I'm not proud of. I stalked my own sister. I knew the hotel where the gala was being held. I knew Isabella's routine. She always needed coffee around 10 a.m. So, on a Tuesday morning, I took a sick day from work and sat in the lobby of the Four Seasons, hiding behind a newspaper like a bad detective. At 10:15 a.m., the elevator dinged. When the doors opened, I almost didn't recognize her. The woman who walked out was Isabella, but she was a shadow of the sister I knew. She was thin, painfully thin. Her collarbones jutted out sharply against her silk blouse. Her beautiful, wild red hair was pulled back into a severe, tight bun that looked painful. She was walking with her head down, checking her phone nervously. I stood up. Isabella. She froze. Her head snapped up, and for a second, I saw pure terror in her eyes. When she realized it was me, the terror shifted to panic. Elena, what are you doing here? She looked around the lobby frantically as if expecting Preston to jump out from behind a potted plant. I live here, remember? I tried to keep my voice light, but I was horrified by her appearance. Up close, she looked exhausted. There were heavy layers of concealer under her eyes, but they couldn't hide the dark circles. I heard you were in town. I wanted to buy you a coffee. I can't, she said automatically, taking a step back. Preston is in a meeting, but he'll be done in 20 minutes. We have a schedule. 20 minutes is enough for coffee, I said, stepping closer. Please, Bella, just 5 minutes. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for an apology. I just want to look at my sister. She hesitated. She looked at the elevator, then at me. Her lip trembled. Okay, she whispered. 5 minutes, but not here. There's a back corner. We sat in the darkest corner of the hotel cafe. I ordered a latte. She ordered a water with lemon. You look... I searched for a polite word. Elegant. I'm tired, she said defensively. smoothing her skirt. Her hands were shaking. I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring, the giant diamond. Instead, she was wearing a simple gold band. "Where's the rock?" I asked, nodding at her hand. She flinched. "It's being cleaned. And Preston, he thinks it's too flashy for daytime. He prefers modesty now." "Preston prefers a lot of things," I said, unable to help myself. "He wants what's best for me," she recited. It sounded like a cult mantra. "He's helping me refine myself. I was so messy before, Elena, you know that. Loud, disorganized. He's teaching me discipline." "You weren't messy," I said softly. "You were happy." She looked away. "Happiness is a choice. Discipline is a lifestyle." "How is he treating you, Bella?" "Really?" She took a sip of water. Her hand shook so much the ice clinked against the glass. "He's wonderful. He takes care of everything. I don't even have to carry a wallet anymore. He manages the accounts. He chooses my clothes. It's very freeing, actually, not having to make decisions." Freeing. She called it freeing. I called it a prison. "And the wedding?" I asked. "Are you glad we weren't there?" Her eyes filled with sudden, hot tears. She blinked them back rapidly. "It was perfect. It was exactly what Preston wanted." "What about what you wanted? We are one person now, Elena. That's what marriage is." Suddenly her phone buzzed on the table. It was a text. Isabella looked at the screen and the color drained from her face completely. She went pale as a sheet. "I have to go," she said, scrambling up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. "He's out early. He's looking for me." "Bella, wait." "Don't follow me," she hissed. "Please, Elena, if you love me, don't let him see you here. He gets in a mood when plans change." "A mood?" I grabbed her arm. Her forearm was incredibly thin, bone under silk. "Isabella, is he hurting you?" She pulled her arm away. "He loves me," she said, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the elevator doors. "He loves me so much, he just wants me to be perfect." And then she ran. My little sister, who used to march up to bullies on the playground, ran away from me like a frightened animal. I sat in that lobby for an hour after she left, feeling sick. I knew then. This wasn't just a bad marriage. This was an erasure. Preston was systematically deleting the Isabella I knew and replacing her with a quiet, obedient, starving doll. I went home and told Maya nothing. I couldn't. How do you tell your daughter that her aunt is vanishing in plain sight? November came. The weather turned cold. The sky was gray, matching my mood. I started keeping my phone volume on max at night. I slept with it under my pillow. I knew the call was coming. I didn't know when, but I knew the dam was going to break. You can only bend a person so far before they snap. It happened on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. The 1-year anniversary of the fortress Christmas we spent alone. It was snowing, a blizzard actually. The wind was howling against the windows of our apartment, rattling the frames. I was dreaming about the beach, about the sandcastle Isabella and I built when we were kids. In the dream, the tide was coming in, washing the castle away, and Isabella was screaming, but no sound was coming out. I woke up with a gasp. The phone was ringing. I grabbed it. 3:14 a.m. "Hello?" Elena. This time there was no slur, no giggling. Her voice was crystal clear, sharp with adrenaline and terror. "I'm here," I said, sitting up and swinging my legs out of bed. "I'm here, Bella." "He's asleep," she whispered. "He took sleeping pills, but he's a light sleeper. I'm in the closet." "Okay," I said, my heart rate spiking. "What happened?" "I found the cameras," she said. Her voice broke. "Elena, he has cameras. In the house, in the living room, in the kitchen. He played back a video of me eating a cookie yesterday. He shamed me for it. He said I was getting fat. He made me watch it over and over." I felt a wave of nausea. "Oh my God, I can't do it anymore." She was crying now. silent, gasping sobs. He locked me in the bedroom today because I smiled at the pool boy. He said I was being a whore. Elena, he has a gun in the nightstand. He took it out tonight. He just set it on the table while he lectured me. He didn't point it, but the message was clear. Listen to me, I said, my voice steady, turning into the protector I was born to be. Get out, now. I can't. The alarm is on. If I open the door, it chimes. He'll wake up. Is there a window? I'm on the second floor. Is there a balcony? Yes, but it's snowing. It's freezing. I don't care if it's a hurricane, Isabella. Put on a coat, put on boots, climb over the railing. Drop to the snow. It will cushion the fall. I'm scared, Elle. You should be scared of staying, I told her firmly. If you stay, you disappear. If you jump, you live. I am getting in the car right now. I am coming to get you. Where are you? We're at the estate, the big one. That's 40 minutes away. I know. I'll be there in 30. Do not hang up. Put the phone in your pocket. Do not hang up until you are outside. I heard rustling. I heard the slide of a glass door. I heard the wind howling into the phone. I'm outside, she whispered. The wind was tearing her words away. It's so cold. Climb the railing, Bella. Do it for Maya. Do it for Mom. Jump. There was a silence. A long, agonizing silence where the only sound was the wind and my own breathing. Then a thud. A muffled groan. Bella? I'm okay, she gasped. I'm in the snow. I'm okay. Run, I said, grabbing my keys and running out the door in my pajamas and coat. Run to the main road. Hide in the trees. Don't let him see you. I'm coming. I drove like a maniac that night. The roads were ice. The visibility was zero, but I didn't lift my foot off the gas. I wasn't driving to a wedding. I wasn't driving to a party. I was driving into the heart of the storm to steal my sister back from the devil himself. But as I sped down the highway, watching the snowflakes smash against my windshield like bullets, I didn't know that Preston wasn't just asleep. Preston was watching, because Isabella had missed one camera, the one on the balcony. The drive to the estate usually took 40 minutes. That night, it felt like 40 years. The blizzard had turned the world into a white void. I couldn't see the road markings. I was driving by instinct and prayer. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Every pair of headlights in my rearview mirror made my heart stop. Was it him? Was it Preston? I reached the turnoff for the estate. The woods were thick here, dark pines groaning under the weight of the snow. I'm here, I whispered into the phone, which I had kept on speaker. Bella, I'm at the turnoff. Where are you? Tree line, she gasped. She sounded like she was freezing to death. North Gate, I can't feel my feet, Elle. Stay with me. Keep talking. Tell me about the pancakes. Tell me the recipe. Flour, she stuttered, her teeth chattering violently. Milk, vanilla, too much vanilla. I saw her. She wasn't wearing a coat. She was wearing a silk pajama set and a cashmere wrap. She must have grabbed from the chair. She was stumbling through the snowdrifts, falling, getting up, falling again. A ghost in the headlights. I slammed the car into park and jumped out. The wind hit me like a physical punch. I ran to her, sinking into the snow up to my knees. When I reached her, she collapsed into my arms. She was ice cold. Her lips were blue. I got you, I screamed over the wind, dragging her towards the car. I got you, Bella. We scrambled into the car. I cranked the heater to the max. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely put the car in gear. Go, she whispered, her eyes wide, staring back at the gate. He'll see the tracks. Go. I floored it. The tire spun, slipping on the ice, and for a terrifying second, I thought we were stuck. Then the traction caught and we shot forward. As we merged onto the main road, Isabella let out a scream, a short, sharp sound of pure terror. My phone, she cried, clawing at her pocket. He tracks it. Elena, he has an app. He knows where I am. Give it to me. She handed me the sleek, expensive smartphone. I didn't hesitate. I rolled down my window, letting the blizzard howl into the car for a second, and hurled the device into the dark woods. Gone, I said, rolling the window up. You're off the grid. She slumped back against the seat, shivering violently. He's going to be so angry, she whimpered. He hates it when I break things. Let him be angry, I said, my voice hard. He's not your husband anymore, Bella. He's your past. We didn't go back to my apartment immediately. I knew that's the first place he would look. We drove to a motel 2 towns over, a cheap roadside place with a neon sign buzzing in the storm. I paid cash. I put Isabella in the shower to warm her up. When she came out, wrapped in scratchy motel towels, she looked like a child. The sophisticated woman who had planned an adults-only wedding was gone. In her place was my little sister, broken and bruised. And there were bruises, fingerprint marks on her upper arm, old yellow ones, fresh purple ones. I didn't ask, I just brushed her wet hair. We have to call the police, I said softly. No. She panicked. He knows the chief of police. He plays golf with the mayor. Elena, you don't understand. He's powerful. He'll twist it. He'll say I'm mentally unstable. He's threatened to do it before. We aren't alone, I said. We have the fortress. We have evidence. I pointed to the bruises. We stayed awake until dawn. When the sun came up on Christmas Eve, the storm had passed. The world was buried in white, silent and clean. We have to go home, Isabella said. I need to see Maya. I need to apologize. The drive back to my apartment was tense. We expected a black SUV to be parked outside. We expected police cars, but the street was empty. We walked up the 3 flights of stairs. I unlocked the door. Maya was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the news. She looked up and her eyes went wide. Auntie Bella? Isabella stood in the doorway. She was wearing my spare sweatpants and an old hoodie I had in the trunk. She looked nothing like the glamorous woman in the magazines. Maya? Isabella's voice cracked. She fell to her knees. Maya, I'm so sorry. Maya didn't hesitate. She didn't ask about the wedding. She didn't ask why she was excluded. She saw the pain. She saw the fear. My daughter ran across the room and threw her arms around her aunt. It's okay, Maya cried, rocking her back and forth. You're home. You're safe. For the first time in 2 years, the 3 of us were in the same room. The fortress was rebuilt, but the walls were scarred. The peace didn't last long. 2 hours later, there was a pounding on the door. Not a knock. A pound. My heart stopped. Isabella scrambled behind the sofa, trembling. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It wasn't Preston. It was 2 police officers. I opened the door, leaving the chain on. Ma'am, the officer said, we have a report of a missing person. A Mr. Preston Harrington claims his wife, Isabella, was abducted from their home last night. He believes she is being held here against her will. Abducted? Of course. That was his narrative. I wasn't abducted, Isabella's voice came from behind me. She stepped forward, her hands shaking but her chin high. I escaped. She undid the chain and opened the door. She showed the officers her arms. She showed them the bruises. I am here of my own free will, she said clearly. I am leaving my husband. If he comes near this apartment, I will file for a restraining order. The officers looked at each other. They looked at the bruises. They looked at the terror in her eyes. They weren't Preston's golf buddies. They were decent men. Understood, ma'am, the older officer said, his tone shifting to gentle. Do you want to file a report for domestic assault? Yes, Isabella whispered. Yes, I do. That Christmas was the strangest one we ever had. We had no gifts. Isabella had left the mansion with $0. Preston had already frozen her credit cards and emptied their joint accounts. He had sent a lawyer's letter threatening to sue her for the theft of family jewelry, the earrings she was wearing. She took the earrings off, put them in an envelope, and handed them to the police officer. Give him these, she said. I don't want anything that touched him. So there we were, Christmas Eve. No money, a legal battle looming, a sister who jumped off a balcony, and yet the air in the apartment felt light. We made pancakes for dinner. We didn't have painting supplies, so we used Maya's old markers to draw on paper plates. Isabella sat at our scratched kitchen table eating a lopsided pancake. She looked at me, then at Maya. I was so poor, she said quietly. What do you mean? Maya asked. You were rich. You had a mansion. No, Isabella shook her head. I was poor. I had money, but I had no voice. I had no family. I had no love. She reached out and took my hand. Tonight, eating pancakes on a scratched table, this is the richest I have felt in 2 years. The recovery wasn't easy. I won't lie to you and say everything was magically fixed. The divorce was brutal. Preston dragged Isabella's name through the mud. He tried to ruin my reputation at work. We spent months in courtrooms. But he underestimated one thing. He underestimated the bond of two sisters who grew up fighting for everything they had. He had money, but we had the truth. And eventually, the truth won. He settled out of court to avoid the photos of the bruises becoming public record. Today, 2 years later, Isabella is a different person. She didn't go back to the high life. She went back to school. She's studying social work. She wants to help women who are trapped in golden cages, just like she was. She never bought another designer dress. She wears jeans and sweaters. She laughs loudly in restaurants. And she never, ever misses a pancake and paint Sunday. Last week, Maya graduated from high school. When the invitation came, there were 3 tickets. One for me, one for Isabella, and one for the empty seat beside us. A reminder of the space we hold for ourselves, for our dignity. As I watched my sister cheer for my daughter, clapping so hard her hands turned red, I realized something important. Family isn't about who shows up for the photo op. It's not about who buys the most expensive gift. Family is about who drives into the blizzard for you. Family is about who jumps off the balcony because they know someone is waiting to catch them. I'm Elena. I'm a single mom, a sister, and a survivor. And if you're watching this and you feel trapped by a marriage, by a family expectation, by a golden cage, please listen to me. The cold snow is better than the warm prison. The cheap pancakes are better than the silent steak dinner. You are worth more than the price of admission. Thank you for listening to our story. If this touched you, please share it. You never know who is hiding bruises under a silk blouse. You never know who needs to hear that it's okay to run.